there and welcome. I'm professional guitarist and music educator Korey Hicks, and today we're going to be tackling one of the most common questions that I get from music students and patrons. How do I practice? What do I practice? How do I put together a practice plan or a regimen? How do I manage expectations? And we're going to be talking about all of that today. Now, while all of this is my own personal ideas and opinions, I've been developing this over the past 20 years as a professional guitar player. I've played over 4,000 gigs supporting my wife and family. I've been a college professor of music, the head of the guitar division at a music college, and I've taught tens of thousands of lessons. So in that time, I've come up with a lot of different things that work. The practicing plan that I'm going to share with you today, I call SCATIR, and that's an acronym for scales, chords, arpeggios, triads, improvisation, and reading. So it's up there on the screen right now for you. All of the stuff that we're talking about today is available over on my Patreon, so if you go to the description below, for $5 a month, you can sign up over there. It's basically buying me a coffee a month. You get access to everything from the Guitar in a Year course, you get all of my Licks of the Day tablature, you get access to the music theory courses that I'm running. You can contact me for private lessons. We can go through tutorials, gear reviews, all of that stuff is over there. So the first thing on the list here is going to be a warm-up. So first of all, we want to have a place where we can practice that has everything that we need there. We're trying to not lose time when we practice. So if you're answering text messages or the phone or getting an Amazon package, checking your email, these are all things that are going to waste your time. Remember, we want to make the best use of our time. So whatever that looks like to you. When I practice, every segment of my practicing is done with a timer. If I say I'm going to practice my scales for 10 or 15 minutes, that means that nothing is going to get in my way. It doesn't matter what it is. Until that timer beeps, I'm not done. And then as soon as the timer beeps, I can move on and get a cup of coffee, use the restroom, or something like that. So it's really important to put all of these things in a notebook. That way we can jot down all of our times, and then we have data that we can go back and look at over time. Over the past 3 months, your average time spent on scales was 7 minutes a day, right? Or the average hourly practice that I get per day is going to be 4.5 hours. Whatever that stuff is, you can look at the data, and it's going to be a really good accountability partner for you, because you're going to be able to say, well, my sight reading is really poor, but I've only worked on it 3 times this month. Or I can't improvise, but I've only improvised over backing tracks 5 days this month. You're going to get a real good look at who you really are as a musician and what you're practicing. If the first thing you do when you practice is pick up your guitar and play your favorite songs, you got to save that to the end. I usually call that musical dessert. So this warm-up time for me personally is just a way to not have any tension. So I'm going to play very simple things on the instrument. So perhaps I might pick a key, like I just picked a B major. And I'm just going to use chords from that key. And I'm going to work through the neck. I'm going to kind of check out my body. Am I holding tension somewhere? Am I, holding the pick too tight? I'm going to be making sure everything is kind of working. I do this for a half hour in the morning when I start practicing. I get up at 4:45 every morning, and I start practicing by 5 a.m. with a cup of coffee. I work better in the morning. You may not, but if you are trying to get some extra hours in your day, it's a really good thing to try, is to wake up early. I also have a full body mirror in my practicing room, and I stand when I practice. I don't sit when I practice. If I'm performing, which I do every single week, I need to practice things standing up because I don't want it to feel different on stage. So I'm always practicing standing. It's also really good for your body posture, and by looking in that mirror, you can check everything out and make sure that you're holding your arms correctly, and any sort of weird motions are going to be readily apparent to you. So in these warm-ups, like I said, I'm just kind of going through the car, as it will, and I'm kind of checking everything out, making sure that everything is ready to go. Your warm-up session may not need to be 30 minutes. It may only need to be 5 minutes. But you certainly don't want to start off running picking exercises at high tempos. That's going to be really damaging to your nerves and your tendons, and an RSI could start creeping up on you. So you don't want to do that. So moving into the actual SCATIR part of our practice regimen, the first thing is scales. Now, remember, scales are not an exercise. They're not to train your fingers to do anything. When I'm practicing scales, what I'm trying to do is memorize the sounds and how they relate to the chords. So if I'm playing, C major, I'm picking those notes out based on what I want to hear. If I want to hear like a particular chord sound, I'm going to pick out those tones. I'm not just randomly picking notes. I'm kind of pre-hearing. So whenever you learn something musically, what you want to do is keep it to three things, kind of like a little checklist: the mind, the ear, and the hand. The mind, can I conceptualize what's happening? What is a C major scale, for example? Well, it's the notes C, D, E, F, G, A, B. Well, what is that? Well, there's 12 notes of the chromatic scale. If I start on C and I create a scale from whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, I end up with these intervals, which then turns into this scale, which turns into these chords, triads, and arpeggios, and those notes are found here. Okay? And so that's the intellectual part of it, the mind. The ear is, can I hear that? Can I hear that if I play an E minor chord with a C major scale, it doesn't sound like C major anymore. Why? Because it's E Phrygian now. Can I hear the differences between those things? Can I interpret things when I hear them? You hear a melody on the radio or something, and you can go on your guitar and figure out where that is. That's the ear part of it. A lot of guitar players forget about that. And then the hand is last. It's so how can we take these things that we conceptualize, we can pre-hear them, or we can interpret them when we do hear them, and then we can find them and play them. So when you're doing any sort of practicing, you kind of want to make sure that you have all three things checked off. If you're just practicing your scales, you have the hand part, but are you truly listening? You know, when somebody plays a melody and I want to play that melody somewhere else, I'm taking that, moving it down an octave. I'm hearing what that is. That's the 1 to the 7 to the 6 down to the 5. So now I can take that melody and find it in any location I want because I know where those things are found. It's not about picking or plucking around trying to figure out what something is. It's really being in tune with this. Now, I know that's a lot of talk about the scales thing, but let's talk about what it really means to have mastery over your scales. I'm going to show you how I like to practice scales, and I'll give you some examples. So the C major scale, a lot of students tell me that this is the C major scale. Well, it is. You have one there, there, and there, and there, and there, and there. Same melody all over the place, right? So let me show you what the actual C major scale looks like over the course of the neck. And I'll put it up here on the video. And it's basically from here to here, C major, right? So if I'm starting at the bottom of the neck, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, and finally E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Whew, okay, so that is how we get from here to here on the neck. Knowing the entire neck in one key, you might be asking me like, well, is C major that important? Yes, it is. C major, all these patterns that you would learn in C major, they're just switched to the other keys. If I want C sharp major, well, then I just play all the same patterns up 1 fret. If I want the key of D, then I go up 2 frets. If I want the key of F, I go up a 4th. There's my pattern 1 right there. So the goal is can I find any pattern at any time? Can I find B flat major pattern 6? Can I find E flat major pattern 7? So this is what real mastery looks like with our scales. And it is totally worth the effort because all of our major scales have all of our modes in there. So think about this, 12 chromatic pitches with 7 notes each equals 84 possible patterns. Still with me? Because there's one pattern built off of each note. In C major, there's a pattern built off of C, a pattern built off of D, a pattern built off of E, F, G, A, and B. Okay? So there's 12 keys, 7 patterns each, that's 84. And there's 7 modes in each key. So now you have 588 patterns total. And you can get there with only learning these 7 shapes. So for example, if I wanted to play E Lydian, all I have to think about is the B major scale. Doesn't sound like a B major, does it? That's because it's not. It's E Lydian. But I'm still using all the things I trained my hand to do in B major. So these 7 patterns you learn are going to be really important to mastering the neck. And maybe you're saying, well, I'm more interested in more out sounds like the altered scale or Lydian dominant or Dorian flat 9, like all these exotic modes. Those are built from the major scale too. So for example, if I wanted like E Lydian dominant, all I have to do is say, well, E Lydian dominant is the 4th mode of B melodic minor, and then I can play a B melodic minor scale. See, it's important because the C major scale and the C melodic minor scale are the same thing, except for one note, right? C major, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. C melodic minor, C, D, E flat, F, G, A, B, C. So all the patterns that you learn with C major, all I'm doing is just altering one note. And then I get C melodic minor. So your prowess, your experience, your ability to play C major is absolutely important if you want to get into all of this other stuff like harmonic minor, melodic minor, all those modes. How good you are at major is going to see how good you are at these other things. That's why we call it the parent scale. So if you're not aware of how important C major is, now you do. So let's take a look at how I might practice this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a metronome on at 70 beats per minute. And I'm going to play through each pattern twice in eighth notes, twice in triplets, and twice in 16th notes. I'm going to get from the lowest available pattern of C all the way up to pattern 3, so as soon as I would get to the octave. And I want you to see, now if you don't want to watch this, you can kind of skip through, but I think for a lot of you, it might be really good to try and play along. Let's say that you already think you know the C major scale. Well, let's see. We're going to put on this metronome, okay? So there's my metronome. I'm just doing it at 70. You want to set your metronome at a tempo that you can also do the 16th notes, okay? So for each pattern, I'm going to start on the C for each pattern, okay? So here's pattern 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I'm going to switch to triplets. Now I'm going to switch to 16ths. 3, 4. Now I'm going to play the pattern that starts on G, but I'm still starting on C. Okay, so now I'm between the 5th and the 7th fret. 1, 2, 3, 4. Triplets. Sixteenths. Now, starting on the A note, so the pinky is going to be my C note. This is from the 5th to the 8th fret. triplets, sixteenths, next pattern, pattern 7, so starting on the 7th note of C major, but C's on my middle finger. Here we go with 8s, 3, 4. Triplets, sixteenths, pattern 1, starting on the note C on the 8th fret. This is going to go from the 8th to the 12th fret. 8th notes, 3, 4. Triplets, sixteenths, now we need the pattern starting on D, so this is going to go from the 10th fret to the 13th fret on the high E string, but our C note is on the D string right here. Here we go. 3, 4. Triplets, sixteenths, finally, our last pattern. This starts on E, goes all the way up to G at the 15th fret. My pinky is going to be on C and the 15th fret of the A string. So 8th notes, 3, 4. triplets. And 16ths. Another thing that you can do is go from the bottom of the neck to the top of the neck in a W pattern. So I'm going to go up one and down another. So let's see how that sounds. Up pattern 4, down pattern 5, up pattern 6, down pattern 7, up pattern 1. You get the idea. 1, 2, 3, 4. That is what I'm talking about when it's mastery of the scale. Now, I know a lot of you probably can't do that at this point, but I just want to show you what the difference is between simply being able to play up one pattern of C major and being able to play the entire neck. I should be able to take, say, the top 2 strings and isolate only those 2 strings. I should be able to do only the G and the D string. So these types of things are what you're going to practice during the scale section. Now, if you don't know all these patterns yet, that's totally fine. Like I said, you can come and visit me on Patreon or send me a message, and we can talk about that. You can even sign up for lessons if you want. But the goal is getting that whole thing in C major. Okay? And then you can transfer it to the other keys and modes after that. So that's kind of a prerequisite. I used to think about it like, it's like the white keys on the piano. So if I can't play C major flawlessly for 10 minutes, I really don't have any business playing Hotel California or Stairway to Heaven or anything like that, because those things are so much more difficult and challenging than simply playing a C major scale. Almost every student that I've ever met, even people that play in bands or people that have been professionals for years who come and take lessons with me, they can't do that C major scale. And it's not because they can't, it's because they just never thought it was necessary. And so a lot of the gaps in their playing are directly result from this. Okay, so everything else that we're going to talk about today is coming straight from these patterns. All of the chords, triads, arpeggios, and all that other stuff is going to come from this scale. For example, so the next part of this SCATIR system is chords. So I could take a look at my C chords. Those are my caged C chords. Here are the F caged chords, the G caged chords. You can go through all of your different caged chords, all of your open position chords in that key, right? But eventually you're going to want to get to a place where you can play all the drop 2s and drop 3s and those types of things. So for example, like that G7 blues I was playing in the intro, these are all G7 chords. So we have to be able to find those. Every single one of those chords that I just played is just G, B, D, and F. And so how did I learn all those? Well, it wasn't from a book. It's from I just learned what a G7 was, and then I went looking for them. Does it take longer to do that? Well, yeah, but the things that we take a long time to learn in the practice room are actually the things that stick with us. I'm never going to forget these things because I use them every day and because I took all the time to learn them in my own private practice. So those chords would go in that section. You can use books like Chord Chemistry or Mel Bay's Complete Harmony Theory and Voice Leading. Books like this are really helpful to supplement your time in the practice room. So that's chords. So scales, chords. A is arpeggios. So I usually teach these on the A string first, but arpeggios are simply the 4-note structures. That's a C major 7 arpeggio, C, E, G, B. Then I do it 2 octaves. If I want to take the C major 7 arpeggio and turn it into a C dominant 7th, I just lower the 7. If I want to take it into a C minor 7, I take that C dominant 7th and lower the 3rd. If I want to take my C minor 7 and make it C minor 7 flat 5, I take the C minor 7 and flat the 5. And if I want to take my C minor 7 flat 5 and make it fully diminished, I just flat the 7 again. So I can take these diatonically: C major 7, D minor 7, E minor 7, F major 7, G dominant 7, A minor 7, and B half diminished. So that's the arpeggios thing. There's a lot of arpeggios. There's 7 6-string arpeggios in every single one of the 7 patterns we talked about. So that's 49 arpeggios. So here's kind of the thing with this practicing plan. We kind of have to resign ourselves to practicing every single day for a long time. So a lot of people look at this practicing regimen as kind of like overwhelming, like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to learn all this stuff. But if you say, well, for the next 365 days, I'm going to practice my scales, my triads, my chords, arpeggios every single day, you know you're going to collect all these things over time. Playing guitar is not something where you just learn something and then you never have to practice it again. I always use this analogy of like an athlete. Once you go pro, you don't stop working out, do you? No, you probably go to the weight room more, right? Same thing is true as you get better with the guitar. You're going to practice more and more, not less. So after arpeggios, I'm going to move on to triads, and I've done a lot of videos on triads, but like here's my D minors or D majors. You find them in every location. And so this is another process where you just go string set by string set. I'm going to learn all the triads on strings 1 through 3. Then I'm going to move on to all the triads on strings 2 through 4. And triads are really important to our playing because not only are they useful as soloing things, but they're useful for comping as well. So triads can be really useful for finding things. It's usually where melodies start as well. The 3rd is the most important tone of a melody or a scale. So those are found in the triads. So here's how a day looks. So you take everything that you're doing in one key. So if today's C major, I'm going to do all my scales in C major, all my chords in C major, all my arpeggios in C major, all my triads in C major. And that means diatonically, not just C itself, but all the things that are related to C. C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished, right? So everything associated with C. And then the I stands for improvisation. So then you're going to put on a backing track and you're going to practice using all the structures that you just learned or that you're refining in your practice. Improvisation is one of the most important ways that we can develop as a musician. It is the probably number one thing I would recommend to people do if they only have 15 minutes. It's just, be able to improvise, put on a backing track and use some of the scales, chords, triads, and arpeggios that you already know in that backing track. It's like learning how to speak or converse with somebody in a foreign language. Putting a lot of emphasis and priority on improvisation so that you can effectively speak with your guitar. You don't want to just regurgitate things that you learn in songs. Lastly, reading, sight reading. I encourage everyone to get a book like Modern Method by Bill Levitt. So books 1, 2, and 3. A lot of my private students use that book. It's a great book. If you haven't learned how to read music, it's a really good way to get the neck mapped out in your playing. Like if I want to play every F on the guitar, I map out all these things not only by practicing note recognition, but also by reading, being able to find notes and be able to develop the skill of just knowing where stuff is on the neck. And so reading can be an important thing. I understand if it's not something that you want to do as a hobbyist, but it might be good for you to at least try. So moving on, after our SCATIR session, we can move into a technique session where we practice maybe a picking exercise, notating this in our practicing journal so that we are able to watch it grow over time so that we have data. So if you start a picking exercise at 90 beats per minute, it's really kind of cool to after a couple of months see it go up to 120 or 130. And so you can actually document this stuff. That's why it's so important to keep a journal and to document everything that you're doing. Next, I would probably recommend going to some method books or rhythm guitar studies. You can see both of these on the chart here. For rhythm studies, a lot of us are not practicing rhythm guitar as a comping instrument, as just developing a groove. And so that can be really helpful too. You could put on a backing track and just play along as the rhythm guitar player, or work with a metronome to develop your time. Method books are ways for us to incorporate other things into our playing that are not associated with the rest of the practicing regimen or the band we're playing in, for example. So maybe you're playing in a country band, but you want to learn more about jazz guitar or funk guitar. That's where a method book can come in handy. So you're just learning some funk etudes, or you're learning some jazz standards on the side to kind of supplement your practice. And then I usually recommend another technique session in there. And then look at the bottom of this chart. At the very bottom, we're taking a look at songs. That's right. Don't pick up your guitar and play songs first thing. If you want to get better at the guitar, keep your repertoire section to the very end. The very end of your practice session is where you're going to start working on songs. I split this into two categories. Number one is new material that I have to learn, either for a band, a session, something like that. And the second part is going to be rehearsing things that I've already learned. It's always kind of discouraging if you spend a lot of time to learn a song and then you go back and you've forgotten it. So I hate relearning songs. So that section is often used to kind of play through the set that I have in the band, or if I've not played with a particular artist for a while, I will go back and kind of review their material in that section. Now, the section on soloing and the solo on improvisation strategies, kind of like the transcription session, that is going to be super important for a lot of you who are going to be soloists. So when you're looking at transcriptions, the idea is to kind of get inside the mind of the improviser. So if you're learning a Robin Ford solo, for example, the goal is to take the material from that solo and kind of incorporate it in your playing. Take a lick, for example, and move it around cycle 4. So one of my favorite licks from Talk to Your Daughter, that part right there is over a C7 chord. So I can take that and move it cycle 4. So I start off in C, then F, B flat, E flat, and then go to A flat, D flat, F sharp, B, E, A, D, and then finally G. So more importantly than just being able to play the lick in every key, I have to know what's going on inside of it. So on the original lick, I have sliding into the major third of C7, to the perfect fifth, to the flatted seventh, down to the third, to the 13 or 6, back to the 5. It's more than just memorizing the tab. You have to get inside the lick. Why is he doing that? Well, because the third, again, is the most important tone of a chord. So if I'm playing C7, it makes sense to play it that way. All right, and at the end of your practice session, there's another thing you're going to probably want to take a look at, and that's probably just having some creative time, whether that's writing your own songs, composing, songwriting, anything that has to do with that, working on tone, working on your pedals or amps or that type of thing. It can keep it really fun. Other things that I just want to add that are great supplemental things to your practice regimen are making sure that you're always listening to new music. Don't just listen to your favorite artists and guitar players. Actively search out guitar players that you have not heard of. One of my favorite guitar players of all time, Danny Gatton, I didn't even know who he was till I was 25 years old. If you would have asked me at 18 if I knew most of the best guitar players in the world, I would have said yes. I didn't. So the guy that probably changed my playing more than anything else, I didn't even know he existed when I was 18. The problem with people that don't know is they don't know what they don't know. Don't always assume that you have it figured out or that you know everything. Kind of going back to that C major scale, right? I just had a student this week say, I thought that was the only place to play C major. The problem with people that don't know is they don't know what they don't know. So kind of expand your horizons. Listen to music you probably wouldn't listen to otherwise. Grab some musicians' biographies, buy a music theory book, start working on your ear training, start learning how to do sight singing, start learning how to do arranging. Expand everything about the musician you are. And just start journaling. Every single day, write the date at the top of that page and put down everything that you're practicing and for how long. Make sure you're using a timer for each section and try to come up with your own practice regimen that fits your lifestyle and your goals. You don't have to use exactly the one that I've presented to you today. It's just kind of here to kind of inspire you to kind of create your own. You can use an Excel spreadsheet, you can use a notebook, you can use all sorts of different ways to kind of maintain the data for your practicing. But I think you'll find if you write everything down every single day, it's going to inspire you to move forward because you have all these days that you can look back on. Oh, see, I did that. I learned that song there. I learned that technique there. And it's just going to start building. I have decades of practicing journals that I can look back on. I can go and look and see, hey, on October 8th, 1997, I was practicing this scale. And that's kind of fun to look back on my journey and see all the things that I've accomplished. I want you to understand that this is not the most interesting or most fun way to practice. No one ever said practicing was supposed to be fun. You have to love the journey. You have to love the practicing. And if you don't, it's going to be kind of difficult for you to make a lot of headway with this. So I just encourage you to kind of have a mind shift about how practicing is done. Have your fun time for the guitar as well, but also make sure that you are really focused on what you want in your playing. Maybe you don't want to be a soloist, so throw out the improvisation section. And lastly, the reason we want to practice like this is so that we have the entire musician's tool belt at the ready. Whenever I get asked to learn 40 songs in just a couple of days, I know where to find everything because it's just this scale, this chord, this arpeggio, whatever it is, and I can put those songs together very quickly. All right, well, if this has been helpful, give us a like, consider subscribing to the channel or going to Patreon. I really appreciate you being here today, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Peace.